It says I'm live. Hi, everybody. Trying to find the chat. It's not showing up. There we go. Cancel. Morning. Live chat. Where's the chat? Can't see it. None. Hide all chat messages. Live chat. Ah, there we go. Okay. So, welcome. Just took a wonderful hike from down there up to here, and just won't go off in the distance. Beautiful town of Xavia. 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 X-A-B-I-A. Xavia, I think is how the locals pronounce it. That is Cumbre del Sur. Let's see anybody in the chat. One message if somebody could just. There we go. Okay. How's my audio? It's kind of windy up here. Sorry for the wind. Can't do anything about that. Off in the distance over there is Cerro Peña. Did a live stream with 13th Monkey, talking about star forts, and that's up behind that mountain range over there. Those of you who are familiar with my channel will recognize that lump. Monty the elephant. And I'm walking out towards the very tip of this part that sticks out into the Mediterranean furthest. And we had rain a few days ago, and so the air is clear, and they haven't started spraying yet today, thankfully. It's a beautiful blue sky without a single line in it, which is pretty rare nowadays. And after rain, especially when the summer heat is gone, you can really see far. And today is one of those amazing days where you can see Ibiza off the coast. And it's amazing to see. I'll stop here in a second, try zoom in. Hold it still. Let me know if you can see that. Can you see the peaks to the right? There's like two mountains, and then there's a big saddle on the right side of the mountain, on the right side of the island. Can you see that? That's a pretty interesting phenomenon to see from this distance, because it's 60 miles away, 90 kilometers. And my viewing altitude is 130 meters high. And for those of you who've been following my channel for a long time, you probably already know that one of my best friends is a guy named Alex Michael, also known as Conspiracy Music Guru, and some call him the Flat Earth Man. He, about 5 years ago, started telling me that he thought the Earth was flat. And I thought he was crazy. And actually, you can see right here, it's not flat at all, right? You'd have to be an idiot to think it's flat. The Earth is flat, right? There's contour everywhere. The Earth isn't flat, but water sure lays flat, doesn't it? And just make sure you guys are hearing me here. How's it going? Sorry, there's gonna be a lot of tourists and cars going by because it's a beautiful Sunday day. And so, sound and visuals all right? Can somebody just let me know? All good. All right. Okay, it's pretty bright out, so it's hard for me to see the chat. So I'll just continue walking and talking. Yeah, so when I was in high school, one of my absolute favorite subjects was geometry, and I was also pretty much a space junkie. Loved all things sci-fi, and so when Al started talking about this thing, I thought it was just the dumbest thing a person could believe, and I was shaking my head going, oh man, he didn't just go there, did he? There's no way. Like, we've got satellites in space, a live stream from the ISS, we're sending probes all over the place. Heck, this week we just crashed one. I don't know, that footage looked a little sketchy to me though. Anyway, this is one of the things about satellites. I call them shy satellites because whenever I get up here on this plateau, I tend to lose reception, which is absolutely ridiculous because I'll show you over here. So, Cumbre del Sol, that nice mountain off in the distance there. Got a bunch of towers and masts in plain sight. And then off in that direction is another town called Gandia with another kind of pyramid-shaped mountain. And that one's also got towers. So why on earth I wouldn't get connections up here with all the satellites that are supposed to be up there? I mean, I'm closer to them, right? I've just gone up in altitude. I'm a little bit high. I think I'm a little too close, and I get a little nervous, and then they cut out on me. So I don't know. I don't know what it is, but there's the beautiful port of Javia. So anyway, I went back and I started doing some math, and you know, it wasn't hard to figure out the Earth curve formula. You know, there's a lot of different ways to calculate it, but they're all pretty much accurate within feet to about, what is it, about 1,000 miles or so. And at 100 miles, it's the differences are just completely insignificant between the different ways that you can calculate it, whether using spherical trigonometry or whatnot. So obviously the easiest one is 8 inches per mile times the distance squared. So at 1 mile, that's 8 inches, and at 2 miles, it's 4 times 8 inches, which is 32 inches. So then I started thinking about Ibiza, and all these times that I'd seen this island that's 90 miles or 90 kilometers away, and you can see it clear as a bell. We're going to get up behind this lighthouse here in a moment, and so, you know, this isn't exactly a fantastic camera I've got. I mean, it's a nice Samsung camera. It's on my mobile phone, but it's not like I'm using a P900 or a P1000 with a 90x zoom or whatever they have, 125x. I'm just using a little phone, and I came out one day cold winter's day where there was very little atmospheric occlusion, no lensing effects, you know, it's just crisp. And I took pictures with my phone, and I got back to my laptop and I downloaded them and zoomed in, and man, oh man, the detail I could see. I could almost see the harbor with my phone at 60 miles out. And I said, that shouldn't be possible. So I started doing the math, and it was astonishing, to say the least. And what I decided to do is I'm gonna go to the most conservative Earth curve calculator there is. Why would I lose my connection when I got these things all around me? So bizarre. Anyway, yeah, so I went to metabunk.org, the guys that were trying to save the world from those idiot, crazy flat earthers. And I figured, well, they're going to have the most accurate and conservative of the Earth curve calculators. So I'll use their numbers, right? They wouldn't lead me astray. Mick West, you know, the great protector of the scientific method and whatnot. So I plugged those numbers in, and you know, you've got your obscured number, and then you've got what they call the refracted hidden. And basically, at the most conservative estimate, there should have been 200 meters of Ibiza obscured by the bulge of the water. Now keep in mind, I'm not saying that I'm a flat earther. I think we're in some kind of a toroid. But like I said before, water measures flat, you know? In fact, we use water and levels to build perfect buildings. And as long as it's contained and it's still, and you don't have any surface tension, you know, surface tension only works across a certain distance. Like when you fill up a glass, it'll bulge over. You can see that little bulge as you fill the glass, and then one drop too many and it runs over because the tension isn't strong enough to hold the water in place. Same thing with raindrops, from what I understand. They can only get a certain size before they start to break because surface tension isn't there. So yeah, so I came up, like I said, on a winter's day, and I got to this point, and it was almost as clear as it is. I mean, it was clearer than it is today, but this is pretty darn clear, and I'll try and hold it very still so you can get a sense of that. So on the right side, there's a little island called Es Vedra, which is out in front of Ibiza, and then there's a right mountain and a saddle, and then a mountain to the left of the saddle. And so I got on Google Earth and I started looking at Wikipedia and finding out what are the sorry, I'm having to watch, that's pretty rough terrain here. You know, what are the altitudes of these different key points? And I can't remember them exactly, but I think the peaks are roughly around 1,300 feet. And the saddle, the low point of the saddle is 200 meters. And that was when my jaw hit the floor, because based on the most conservative Earth curve calculator you could ask for from Metabunk, and we'll get back to that in a moment, that saddle that you can see clearly with my little Samsung phone now, I hope you can see it clearly, maybe you can let me know if that's visible or not. Yeah, that was another thing, the whole ship's going over the horizon thing, right? That's what they teach us in school. Teach us that Columbus was, you know, sailing the ocean blue in 1492, and he was so brave, and he didn't believe the myths that you could sail off the edge. And so because of that, he was able to discover America, right? Yeah, and then I saw a P900 zoom where you could see the horizon and nothing on it, and then you zoom in and you can see this boat. This little P900 zoom buoy, 30-second video that just rock my world, because as it zoomed out, the boat completely disappeared. And now when it was zoomed in all the way, you could not just see the boat, this little 2-3 meter high boat, but you could see the motor and you could see the wake behind the boat. And as this P900 zooms out, not only did the entire boat disappear, but it kept zooming and zooming to the point where you could not see even a speck on the horizon. And I thought immediately, like, there's no way we're seeing around corners, right? That shouldn't be possible. So, and this was long before I discovered the works of somebody like Jay Tolan, where he's using incredibly powerful cameras and infrared photography, which cuts right through the atmospheric occlusion. So anyway, that was just a total mind blow to me, because I was seeing, to the best of my knowledge, 200 meters of that island over there, which I can see right now again, as well as all these boats that are off close to it, these tankers that go through, and they're like 20 miles out, and you can zoom in on those, and none of the boat is missing. And so I decided to write to Metabunk, and they have a forum that I wrote in, and I said, does EBISA prove that the Earth is flat? And then I took the pictures, and I got on Google Earth, and I drew the lines, and I looked at, you know, their Earth curve calculator and plugged in the numbers for my viewing altitude and the distance. And you know, that saddle that I've shown now several times, and I hope you can see it, and if not, I'll post some of the better pictures that I've taken with this phone in my next video. But you know, that none of that should have been there. And so I got into this debate and this back and forth with the guys on Metabunk, Maxi Bunk, and then what they did is they started. I mean, you guys can go on and look for it yourself. It's still there. And I just eventually dropped out of the conversation because I realized I wasn't getting anywhere with these guys. And they ended up changing the title to, does EBISA prove the Earth is flat? And they put in brackets and said, no, it proves it's a ball. So that was interesting. So then about a year and a half or 2 years later, I was listening to a debate between Mick West and a guy named Quantum Eraser, and they were talking about this whole idea of atmospheric refraction. And there's like 5 different kinds of refraction, and the question is which of the 5 kinds are you invoking, and what happens if you're using infrared photography, and what if it's a super clear day, like you know winter, cold, and almost no humidity. Then you know the numbers are going to be very different, obviously. And so Mick West in that live debate admitted that he had arbitrarily arrived at the number for the variable that he was using for what he was calling standard refraction, and he had no scientific experiment, no evidence whatsoever, and it was something that he had just plugged in to the Metabunk calculator, and it skewed the numbers obviously in the favor of a ball. And I thought, wow, that's pretty disingenuous, and he just admitted it in an open debate. So anyway, I'm not saying it's flat. Water measures flat, and according to the 4,000 mile radius ball, and you know what we know about mathematics, the top, that saddle there, the bottom of the saddle, that should be level with the horizon at this distance. And as far as I can tell, and looking at it in relationship to the peak to the right and left, all of it is there. And again, this isn't a very powerful camera at all. So if I had a P900, I could probably see the harbor on a clear winter's day. Yeah. So I just think that's interesting. And it's far from being the dumbest idea ever. I mean, we're told boats go over the horizon and disappear bottom first, and yet we don't see any curvature this way, which is pretty weird. You'd think, considering the horizon is a much longer line when you're looking at a triangle, you know, we're cutting across the center of a triangle, you know, that's going to be the shortest of the distances. So if we can see a boat disappear this way, why do we not perceive any curvature? And they say, oh, well, it's too big. It's way too big for you to see curvature. You can hardly see it when you're up in a, you know, cruising altitude in a plane. Okay, well, if it's too big, then why am I seeing a boat disappear over the horizon? So there were lots of things like that early on that I started looking at. And, you know, gas pressure without a barrier. We do have atmospheric pressure here. So far from being the dumbest thing that you could possibly believe, I think it's an incredibly interesting thing to think about as an intellectual exercise. You know, if you think about all of the different aspects of the arguments for and against, and you know, it's this is a great way to teach kids. You know, we should be having debates about this stuff in school. Instead, it's no, we proved it long ago, and you'd have to be an idiot. And what do you think? There's some flat disk that's up there, and all the other things in the sky are balls. You know, and they're always using these straw man arguments. They're never actually going for the, you know. And plus, the algorithms have been tweaked, so like the first hundreds of videos that you see on the subject in YouTube are all anti-flat Earth. Some of them are subtle, though, you know. So YouTube has admitted in Congress that they're censoring the subject. Why would they censor it if it's so dangerous? I mean, you can believe anything you want. You can believe a man can get pregnant now, right? That's okay. You can promote that all day long, and they'll boost your channel to millions of views probably. But if you start questioning Earth shape, and you know, who knows what'll happen with this video, then you shouldn't procreate. You're the dumbest person alive. So anyway, I just think it's fascinating, and you know, with these zoom cameras and the infrared and all this other stuff, it's just I think it's a great subject to discuss, and we should be allowed to without Google censorship kicking in. Why does this chat always keep disappearing? That is just the stupidest thing. Okay. Yeah, sonar, microwave is across straight distances. These towers that are you know, on these mountains, those go across straight distances. You know, Loran, which was the predecessor to GPS, same thing. And railguns can hit stuff that's 100 miles away. Like, what? At 100 miles, there should be 6,700 feet of curvature. So it's just falling at just the right rate, you know, no matter what its speed, to make it all and just hit perfectly, you know. I don't know. They'll have excuses for everything I've just said, obviously, given time. But I think the world is far more far out than we ever could have dreamed of. Beyond the beyond, as they say, or as my dad used to say. I think gas pressure is wrong because if there is nothing other than its own weight pressurizing the gas, it wouldn't need a barrier next to a vacuum. Well, they always invoke gravity. That's their magical glue for everything, and they bounce back and forth between Newtonian gravity and Einsteinian gravity, which are completely different. One being, you know, mass attracting mass, and the other being the warpage of supposed space-time, which you know, has that been proven? Did they really prove it with LIGO, the existence of gravitational waves? I mean, LIGO, it's got the word lie in the title, right? So they'll invoke gravity, and they'll say that it's a gravitational gradient, and that the reason our atmosphere sticks to the ball, just like, you know, the water is sticking to the spinning ball, and the atmosphere is just velcroed to the ball as it's spinning around at the equator at 1,000 miles an hour in their model. And yet we've got these spiraling storms that are going in opposite directions, you know, and all of that is held in place and we're right next to the vacuum of space, and there's this vacuum up there that isn't just going and sucking our atmosphere off into space. Why? Because of gravity, because there's this gravitational gradient. So it gets less and less and less and less as you go higher and higher and higher. And that's why it's all sticking down. Well, that's great, but you'd think that that would be a very, very delicate equilibrium, right? And that, like, shooting rockets out into space might disrupt that equilibrium and cause less of a balance that might end up resulting in our atmosphere getting sucked off forevermore. So my thought is that there's probably a barrier up there of some sort. Can you hold gas in your hands? No, it needs a container. Exactly. It diffuses equally. If you've studied basic physics, you'll know that you can't, unless there's a barrier. If you have a square, or just like a terrarium with a cover and a barrier, on one side you have gas pressure, on the other side you don't, and you so annoying, this chat disappears. When you remove the barrier, the gas is going to diffuse evenly. Doesn't even work with water, tea, or beer. Exactly. Like to know why metal objects sticking to me, non-vax. Metal, well, you just have a magnetic personality, I guess. Depends on how strong the magnet is. Atmosphere is attached to the ball, yet it's dynamic and not connected at the same time. Earth spin affects balls, bullets, hurricanes, but not planes, helicopters, and balloons. Yeah, that's suspicious, don't you think? So anyway, Alex got me thinking, and I've been thinking ever since. And I think it's interesting that all the people that are out there that are supposedly debunking flat Earth are constantly relying on the weakest possible arguments, ad hominems, appeals to ridicule. You never see any debates where these guys are going against the toughest of the arguments. That's called steel manning. It's the opposite of straw manning, and they constantly are straw manning. Can I speak Swedish? I do, but I'm not interested in being known in Sweden as a flat earther or a crazy man, because I've got family there that are already embarrassed by a television appearance that I accidentally made. Yeah. Downward vector is static electric magnetism. Yeah, there's a lot of great information. I would steer people to channels like Globebusters, because they go into this stuff a lot, and they really break it down, and they make it easier to understand for people who don't have scientific background. You don't have to be an expert to be able to understand experts, or to be able to understand whether somebody is using illogical thinking and logical fallacies. A Thunderdome, I don't know what that is. They call airplanes not air curves. Exactly. Airplane. Yeah. So I mean, my thoughts about this realm are way more complex than just pizza Earth. I think that ultimately we live inside of toroidal cymatic utterances of the Godhead. How about that? And I think it's fractal. I think every cell in our body is an example of that, and then it goes up all the way to worlds, perhaps, and maybe those worlds are nested in tissues in an even greater being. Who knows? Yeah. Oh, and take a look here. Some native limestone. Now, this is obviously really far from Mont Go. I'm not suggesting that this is also part of Mont Go, but this is Titan country, and these mountains are made of the same stuff. So maybe someday we'll be able to determine scientifically what they once were. Right now, what you can do is what I've done with Mont Go is try and if you you have a Titan near you, try and acquire a preponderance of evidence in favor of your theory. You know, looking at the macro anatomy, the microscope, all of those things I've done in the Unveiling a Titan series, 6 parts. Don't judge it by the first video, because that's just an overview and it's not really presenting the information. The evidence is in parts 2 through 6. Yeah, so just an absolutely gorgeous day. Oh, and I don't know if you can make out that little part to the left. This is one of the things that was when I was debating on Metabunk. I was saying, is that Majorca there? Because if you look in a straight line from this point out to Ibiza on Google Earth, Majorca is just slightly to the left. And that may just be a part of Ibiza where some of the island has been obscured by atmospheric occlusion. There is a white layer there, so even on a clear day you're going to get some occlusion. But I've been here on clear days and there's another body that I've seen even further left, and that's Majorca, I believe. And if that's Majorca, it's something like 120 miles from here, and the numbers get a whole lot bigger because it's, you know, the curve, the further out you go, the greater the drop should be. If you have a 4,000 mile line of sight, which is obviously impossible because of the atmosphere, then the drop should be 4,000 miles if the ball is an 8,000 mile diameter. It's just real basic geometry. It shouldn't be so hard for people to grasp. So the further out you go, the steeper that curve gets, and the less of whatever it is you're looking at, you should be able to see. There's a 3-minute video on Canigou, C-A-N-I-G-O-U, which is pretty amazing. Long distance photography. There's just so much out there that, you know, it's quite simple. It comes down to one thing: we see too far, way too far. Check out Jay Tolan's work if you don't believe me. So, anything, get in the shade so I can read the chat a little bit. Make us Smurf colored, then we can post links. Yeah. Caught red-handed live streaming on a Sunday morning. Yeah, Willie asked me yesterday, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna stream again soon? I was like, nah, probably on Tuesday. Maybe going on with Bernie and Campbell from Autodidactic again, with 13th Monkey along for the ride. So I'm not sure what we're going to be discussing yet, but if we do that, come along and join in, and yeah, so I'll say goodbye for today. Hope everybody is well, and yeah, buggers get you down, and don't believe people invoking standard refraction when they're just making up the numbers. And ask yourself, if you're not a person who believes in any of this stuff, why would they feel the need to lie about so much stuff? Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody. I hope you were able to see some of the stuff I was pointing out, and you enjoyed the one-sided conversation. Have a good one. Oh, how do I stop? There we go. Take care.